Visualize this. You are knee-deep in the mud somewhere in Europe. Your rifle is jammed, your socks are soaked, and you are starving. You reach into your kit and pull out a tin of meat labeled Spam, 3 hard-as-rock biscuits, a packet of instant coffee, and, if it is a good day, a candy bar and a cigarette. Welcome to the front lines of World War II. You just imagined what it was like in World War II. World War II was not just a war of weapons and strategies, it was also a war of calories, logistics, and morale. In this video, we delve into the battlefield that every soldier faces daily: food, or, more specifically, military rations. From the high-calorie, high-science American k-rations to the simple Soviet bread and pork combo, from Japanese rice balls to British tins of bully beef, we are going around the world one tin at a time. First, let's get one thing straight. Rations were not just meals. They were military tools at the time. Soldiers needed food that could survive weeks or sometimes even months in storage. That meant it had to be non-perishable, compact, and easy to transport, capable of keeping a soldier on their feet for hours or even days of intense combat. Meanwhile, it also had to support morale. Hungry, cranky troops don't win wars. A small bar of chocolate or a hot cup of tea could mean the difference between giving up and pushing forward. The United States led the charge in the field of ration science. The U.S. Quartermaster Corps had entire departments dedicated to food development, utilizing the latest advancements in nutrition science and industrial preservation techniques at the time. Even at the time of war, the U.S. was already ahead in the game. The rations were divided into certain categories. K-rations. These K-rations were designed for short missions and troops, such as paratroopers and mobile units. The K-ration came in 3 boxes: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Each box packed about 1,000 calories for the soldiers. A typical breakfast K-ration used to have chopped ham and eggs in a can, which often came out gelatinous, a pack of compressed biscuits as used as a light snack, a fruit bar or canned fruit, and an instant coffee with sugar tablets. Chewing gum used to be included to keep the taste buds alive. And the last thing, you guessed it right, a few cigarettes for the soldiers. In these K-rations, the lunch brought items used to have canned, processed cheese, lemon drink powder, hard candy, and more biscuits. Biscuits were lightweight items that could be used when soldiers were not too hungry or hungry enough for a full meal. While the dinner often had meat and beans or pork loaf, it also had cocoa powder, crackers, and a chocolate bar. These meals were compact but often repetitive and boring. Imagine eating the same thing for so many days. Soldiers quickly got tired of them. One veteran even claimed eating K-rations for weeks made him hate cheese for life. Then comes the C-ration. It was a step-up intended for longer-term use. It featured larger cans with more variety. It had a B unit that included biscuits, powdered beverages, and candies. Then the M unit had a main entree such as beef stew, chicken, and noodles, or meat and beans. Still, these meals were eaten cold more often than hot, and most soldiers joked that the C stood for constipation, since the food was often cold and hard to digest. But at times like these, even the availability of food is a blessing. When people are being displaced, bombs are dropping, having food in your bag was the biggest blessing. The British rations were also known by 2 words, tea and tinned, which is because they fed the empire on tinned meat, dry biscuits, and tea, lots of tea. To the extent that people would drink tea, it would be mistaken for water. Typical British 24-hour ration included bully beef, was a salty, fatty corned beef in a tin, biscuits, brown, which was a substitute for cardboard-like hardtack, margarine or jam, boiled sweets for energy and morale, oatmeal blocks for porridge, tea tablets, and evaporated milk. Soldiers at that time used hexamine stoves to heat tea, even in the middle of the North African desert or a Belgian winter. British troops made time for tea, a small but powerful ritual of normalcy. But unfortunately, variety was lacking in the rations. For years, troops ate the same things daily. Some soldiers reportedly buried their tins of corned beef just to avoid eating them again. It is humanly impossible to eat the same things for such a long time, and no matter how much beef or meat you would put in those rations, at one point they became hard to even look at. The German army, or Wehrmacht, had a complex supply chain early in the war, but it began to fray as the conflict dragged on. A German ration had a mixture of different items. It had rye bread or hard black bread, canned meat, and a coffee substitute made from roasted acorns or barley. Germans made heavy use of field kitchens, preparing hot meals when possible. A hot bowl of Eintopf was very common in Germany. But by 1943 and 1944, things got grim, because at this point, food became scarce. Ersatz substitute products took over, including ersatz chocolate, ersatz cheese, and even ersatz meat. These products were notorious for their poor taste and low nutritional value. Troops on the Eastern Front often lived on dry bread and canned meat, that is, if they were lucky, or else they would get nothing. I believe the Soviets did badly by their soldiers. They could have done better by providing some nutritional food instead of a restricted diet. The Red Army fed its millions of soldiers with the bare essentials. A typical Soviet ration used to look like having 600 grams of black bread, 100 grams of porridge, 150 grams of salted pork or fish, and 30 grams of sugar. They would have soup made of cabbage, potatoes, or millet, and on certain occasions, tushunka was given, which is a highly prized canned stewed meat. For drink, sometimes kvass is a fermented beverage, but more often just water or the infamous vodka ration, which had 100 grams per day during the battle, was used to boost morale and numb fear. In the Soviet, too, like Japan, supplies were inconsistent. Some frontline troops went days with scarcely any food. During the siege of Leningrad, civilians and soldiers alike resorted to eating wallpaper paste, pets, and worse. The Japanese Imperial Army distributed rations that reflected traditional Japanese food habits, but the logistics couldn't keep up with the scale of the war. The Japanese rations would typically consist of white rice or rice mixed with barley, dried fish or canned sardines, which the Japanese people are fond of, some pickled radish or plums, seaweed, soybean paste, and of course, green tea. In the Japanese military, soldiers were often required to cook their rice using small field stoves, even in combat zones. Unlike the US or Germany, Japan struggled with supply chain breakdowns in the Pacific. Isolated garrisons often starved. Some people provided accounts from Iwo Jima and the Philippines, describing troops eating rats, tree bark, and eventually each other, which was due to the breakdown in supply and demand. What is the one common thing across all World War II armies? Small luxuries mattered. They were like edible hugs from home for them. USD ration bars were chocolate bars designed not to melt in hot climates. But they were so dense and bitter that soldiers joked they were more weapon than dessert. While the British troops sometimes received rum rations, especially in the Navy, whereas the Soviets had their daily vodka shots. The Germans occasionally got schnapps, though less frequently as the war progressed. And cigarettes? Everywhere. This one item was available everywhere. They were included in nearly every ration pack across all nations and used for stress relief, trade, and bonding. World War II completely revolutionized military logistics and food science, and that era gave us lessons that directly led to the invention of meals ready to eat in the 1980s. With the rise of instant coffee and powdered drinks, more attention is being paid to balanced nutrition and morale-boosting food items. And yes, even the modern protein bar has its roots in the D ration. Today's meals ready to eat come with flameless heaters, vegetarian options, and even dessert packs. But back then, they were just trying not to die with a mouthful of ham jelly. So, next time you are annoyed at a soggy sandwich or bland cafeteria food, remember, some poor soldier in 1944 had to eat meat paste from a can while under mortar fire. Which country's World War II rations would you try if you had the chance? Would you choose American cheese and crackers, Soviet kasha, or perhaps a Japanese rice ball? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this edible journey through history, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.